All right, let's get to the first Western film that I will be discussing. And obviously, there's a lot to choose from. Some I decided to wait to talk about because I might be doing a director specific show and include those. So I tried to find a diverse collection of recent ones. But the first one is The Lone Ranger from 2013, directed by Gore Verbinski, stars Johnny Depp, Armie Hammer, William Fichtner, Tom Wilkinson, Ruth Wilson, Helena Bonham Carter, James Badge Dale, and the synopsis is Native American warrior Tonto recounts the untold tales that transform John Reed, a man of the law, into a legend of justice. I know it's kind of divisive, and I know it was a huge box office bomb, at least. I love it. Just to get it out there, I think it's so underrated. I don't even really understand why it got so much hate. Seems, compared to a lot of other films, the production, the score by Hans Zimmer is amazing. It looks fantastic. Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer are great together, and the makeup for Johnny Depp is really, really good. It's a very, very dark story as well, which is from the original, and considering it's a Disney film, I'm surprised they got away with all that they did, like the villain eating the guy's heart out. It's maybe a little too overstuffed, but that's kind of Gore Verbinski's style. His films are always really jam-packed with plot and a lot going on. The opening, which is kind of a framing device of Tonto being this old man at this, I think it's like a circus or something, and he sees this boy and recounts the story. I think that worked. The love story between Armie Hammer and Ruth Wilson, who's a very underrated actor, that's effective. The stuff with, like, if I had to pick something that didn't really need to be there, it's the Helena Bonham Carter subplot, but she's so entertaining and the character design and all that is great, so I don't mind that whatsoever. And I may have talked about this before, but I think one of the reasons why I connect with Verbinski's films so much is that he feels very Spielbergian, especially when it comes to action. There's this whimsical, witty feel to his set pieces. Anything on trains in this is some of the best in the film, like the one towards the beginning when Tonto is tied up in the train car, and of course the final one when Johnny Depp is going from train to train on the ladders. The drug-hazed dream sequences with Armie Hammer when he's injured and Tonto is bringing him back to life. That night battle between the Native Americans and American soldiers. The Lone Ranger and Tonto both being buried up to their necks in the dirt, and then the scorpions get on top of them. The backstory of Tonto selling his soul and his people without realizing it for a little silver because of white men coming in and tricking the Native Americans. William Fichtner is also great as the villain. Heavy 5 out of 5. All right, let's get to Slow West from 2015, written and directed by John McLean. Stars Cody Smith-McPhee, Michael Fassbender, Karen Pistorius, Jeffrey Thomas, Ben Mendelsohn, and the synopsis is a young Scottish man travels across America in pursuit of the woman he loves, attracting the attention of an outlaw who is willing to serve as a guide. I saw this when it first came out. This was still in the early years of A24, but they had kind of gotten a name for themselves. Similar to The Lone Ranger, I think this is another very underrated film. It's only 80 minutes or so, which is incredibly rare for a Western. The concept is very original, I think, too, of this Scottish guy coming over to America, not being familiar with anything, none of the customs, traditions, the people, language, nothing. And so when he's confused or surprised as to these random encounters, you're surprised as well. You're like, huh, like it's done in a way that there is that mystery. This is a great role for Michael Fassbender. He's amazing in it. I don't love Cody Smith-McPhee across the board, but I think he fits the role well enough. Ben Mendelsohn, such a great character actor. He can do anything, and his coat in this, his fur coat, incredible. The score by Jed Kurzel, similar to what we'll get to with The Ridiculous Six, it's very, very colorful. The opening credit scene when he's covered in soot and that Native American comes upon him, I don't know how accurate it is. I'm guessing it must have been a thing, but the encounter of the African music band playing the bongo drums, the trading post scene when the family is like desperate, they're trying to rob the place, and then they're both killed by Michael Fassbender, and they go outside and realize that they had kids and they were just trying to feed their family. The flashbacks to Scotland and the voiceover kind of give it a bit of a fable feel. When Michael Fassbender and Cody Smith McPhee split up, and then McPhee makes the mistake of trusting this wanderer who he meets, and he wakes up the next day and all the stuff is gone. Then the best part of the film is the shootout at the end. The look of that field and of that house, the direction in that is so good, with different people popping up in different spots, like just a few shots here and there, but everything having an impact. It's got good suspense. Geographically, it all makes sense. And then the final moment of the love interest accidentally shooting McPhee without realizing who it is. The title of the movie is kind of strange. It's not bad and it doesn't take away from anything, but I've never heard of that term, if that was a term or if that's coming from a piece of literature. I would be curious to learn more about that. Idea-wise, thematically, what sticks out the most is how McPhee is very idealistic, very hopeful about everything, and then Michael Fassbender, who's been living this life for a long time, is quite cynical, and how those two ideas fight against each other. Heavy 4.5 out of 5. All right, let's get to The Ridiculous Six from 2015. It is a Netflix film directed by Frank Coraci, who has done a lot of Adam Sandler films. Stars Adam Sandler, Terry Crews, Jorge Garcia, Taylor Lautner, Rob Schneider, Luke Wilson, Will Forte, Steve Zahn, Julia Jones, Harvey Keitel. And the synopsis is: an outlaw who was raised by Native Americans discovers that he has 5 half-brothers. Together, the men go on a mission to find their wayward, deadbeat dad. This one, I was debating between this and A Million Ways to Die in the West, because I wanted to make sure to include a spoof satire western in this collection. I only got around to seeing it in its entirety about a year ago. I know that there's a lot of hate out there for it. I don't loathe it the way some people do. I definitely don't think it's a good movie. It could have been so much better. I also know that the title for this movie obviously came from The Hateful Eight, the Tarantino film, which is a great movie. The biggest reason by far that this movie suffers is the runtime. It is 2 hours long. Any spoof of any genre, any satire, it should be 80 to 90 minutes tops, because you can only kind of get into those ridiculous jokes for so long. Because once the jokes go away, it becomes a pretty substandard Western plot of these guys traversing the landscape, getting into brawls and gunfights with random people who aren't that well written or that funny. I was never truly rolling my eyes at the jokes because I knew it was Adam Sandler, and from the first few minutes you can see what you're getting into. Surprisingly, I thought Taylor Lautner was hilarious in this a lot of the time. Not perfect, but to be real, probably his best performance to date. Adam Sandler was kind of just the straight man in this, as he often is with these ensemble casts. In terms of the setup, like the synopsis says, He goes out and tries to find all these different long lost brothers, and they're all complete morons. I really like Julia Jones, who I haven't seen in a whole lot. She mainly does TV. The baseball scene with John Turturro is a standout. Taylor Lautner being hanged but not dying no matter how many times they try. The donkey scene, yeah, it's gross and really stupid. The Steve Buscemi cameo, Danny Trejo. The score is very enjoyably over the top. Very light, 2.5 out of 5. Let's get to The Harder They Fall from 2021. Is a Netflix film directed by James Samuel. Stars Jonathan Majors, Zazie Beetz, R.J. Clyer, Idris Elba, Regina King, Lakeith Stanfield, and the synopsis is: when an outlaw discovers his enemy is being released from prison, he reunites his gang to seek revenge. I saw this one for the first time just a couple of months ago and had heard fairly good things, but didn't know really what to expect. Overall, I liked it. It was a little underwhelming. It very much feels Tarantino inspired. And I found that it rode a very fine line that it didn't always keep, of either being a Tarantino homage to just feeling like a bad Tarantino knockoff. The soundtrack and score is great, very strong cinematography. The overall narrative is pretty messy, not always in a bad way, but I read some reviews saying that one of the things that was great about it was that the character work was very strong. I have to disagree on that. I couldn't tell you much at all about anyone in this, and honestly, I was getting kind of lost sometimes with who knew who, the motivations of certain characters. I think the final twist with one of the characters is very effective, and I did not see that coming, but that resolution is the last 5-10 minutes of the film, so I didn't even really get a chance to sit with that, to think about it. Prior to that, the action sequence, the shootout that takes place in this town is pretty good. A little overly long, like it's probably 40-45 minutes just nonstop, but overall it was choreographed and directed well. The breakout of Idris Elba on the train, and I thought Regina King, who one of the most emotional scenes with her was telling that story to Zazie Beetz about her childhood. And I know that Jonathan Majors has been at least somewhat canceled because of his abuse charges. Even before that, I was never really a big fan of him. I don't think he's a bad actor, but in this, in Ant-Man 3, and a couple other roles, he doesn't do that much for me. There was also some fairly modern dialogue and terminology throughout, and I thought it worked. 3.5 out of 5. All right, let's get to the last film in this collection, which is Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1 from 2024, directed by Kevin Costner and stars him, as well as Sienna Miller, Sam Worthington, Jenna Malone, Owen Kraushu, Abby Lee, Tom Payne, Scott Hayes, and the synopsis is: chronicles a multifaceted 15-year span of pre- and post-Civil War expansion and settlement of the American West. So this is an interesting one because Part 2, or Chapter 2, is supposed to have come out already, and there's still, as of now, no release date, but there's also supposed to be 2 more, so it's a 4-part film, like a 12-hour saga. Honestly, I don't understand why, if you want to tell this epic story, why you would do it if only 2 were greenlit. Because even Kevin Costner had to put in a lot of his own money to finance these first 2. I still think for what it is, it's quite well made. Kevin Costner directs it well. He fits as an actor the Wild West setting and look. It's always nice to see Abby Lee in things. She's not in a lot, but I saw her in Fury Road first, as well as the Neon Demon. Sienna Miller is quite good. Sam Worthington, he's a decent actor. He has had success from the Avatar films, but that's about it. I've never seen him give an incredible performance, but he's good enough in this. The first hour or so, there's no Kevin Costner. He doesn't show up till later, and that's okay, but was a little surprising considering he's the only one on the posters. I know that one issue, one criticism, and Kevin Costner spoke on it. I don't want to get into it too much, but the idea of Native Americans being portrayed as violent, as killing white men, and then white men or white settlers attacking them. And I'm just thinking, what history do you think he's drawing from? Of course, white settlers were wrong to do what they did, to take this land away from the Native Americans, but at the same time, there was still violence caused on both sides. And so I think portraying that in a realistic way is completely fair. That's like criticizing the show Mad Men for portraying sexism in the 60s, or people criticizing Dunkirk because there was no women in it. Heavy 3.5 out of 5.